One thing that really stood out to me in our readings and stuff like that about curriculum in the past couple weeks was actually the mentioning of LGBTQ in not only curriculum but history and sex education and a bunch of other classes as well. As a health teacher, I almost didn't realize, how much I was actually excluding when looking over some of my lesson plans back when I taught at a high school. So one journal article that I read over that really resonated with me was actually an article by Robert McGarry, and it was about the LGBTQ community within education. It's called Build a Curriculum That Includes Everyone, and it's about striving for schools to be more accepting and understanding of the LGBT students, and it hopes that it will bring like more diversity into sex education classes and then also other classes within the school. Our main ones really being like history and English. But like I said before, as a health teacher, I began to really think about how much I, skimmed through or even skipped entirely, just because I was worried about, what my students would think, what their parents would say, how my colleagues would react, how administration would. Within my sex education course. So as someone who promotes sex education, I don't really believe that abstinent-only sex education works any way, shape, or form. After reading multiple articles, and especially this one, I feel that we are leaving out a huge group of people within sex education and general education. Even some states have laws that prohibit the LGBTQ development to be within the curriculum, which I think is absolutely insane, because we as teachers are trying to teach the whole child, every child, everybody gets a good education, hopefully. Again, like I said, the major classes where, even some students might actually tip a little bit about the LGBT community is history, English, and then health. So I was reading into it and trying to figure out how I could perhaps incorporate more of this into my curriculum later on if I ever do go back to teaching high school, so that I can include everyone. So when trying to incorporate the LGBT into your curriculum, it's necessary that teachers don't ignore the existence of the LGBT community, because that shows that heterosexual behaviors are the norm or normal. Another thing that's important to not do is demonize homosexuality, where it's viewed wrong or unacceptable. You don't want to talk about that or do that in the curriculum, obviously. Creating LGBTQ curriculum with a stigma, like assigning the fact that the AIDS epidemic is due to gay men. These stigmas create this, this stigma creates the LGBT community as someone who is, a huge dangerous risk taker, which obviously isn't true. And then finally, it's important to include transgendered people into the curriculum as well. So not only discuss lesbians and gays, but also transgendered as well. Another thing that was really brought to my attention that I hadn't really thought of was how influenced students are from teachers beyond the curriculum. So how we perceive certain things, how we feel, how we talk about, gays, lesbians, transgendered, or anything like that within the classroom. So it's important that teachers include everyone, no matter their sex or how they identify, and should respect their wishes when it comes to gender and pronouns. And that's something that even now in elementary school, I'm going to make sure that I'm more aware of within my classes. In all honesty, sexuality is such an important part of everyone's identity, and like I said, it's our responsibility to make sure that all students receive the best education that they can and feel included and wanted and safe, no matter what sexual orientation they have or gender identity or expression. And then finally, one big quote that really stuck out to me was by a man who wrote an article, DeWitt, on why really LGBTQ isn't in the curriculum. He says, when our curricula, schools' policies, and pedagogical practices fail to acknowledge the existence of an entire population of students, we expunge the evidence required to validate their fragile, incoherent, identities, and for a minoritized population relentlessly forced to defend their legitimacy, the consequences are dire. So again, it's so important that we include everybody, and it's something that I'm going to definitely work on, and something that I hope I can educate people on later on in the future. Thanks.